Hello everyone, it's Steph here from Hilltop Journals. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to make a cover to go around a journal using RachelandBellaCraft's Around the World Travel Journal Kit, and this is part of my design team project this month, as well as a gift for somebody that's asked for it. So here is the kit, and it is, as usual, really beautiful. I'll just do a quick flip through of the pages so that you can get a feel for it. I haven't backed them because I'm going to use these during the project, and you'll see how I use them. But it's quite neutral, suits male or female, which is what I really like, because it's difficult sometimes to make a journal for gentlemen, but it's just got so many lovely pictures. And yes, so that's the cover page, which I will be using, but not quite like a cover page. And it's got some lovely ephemera as well. I'll get to the ephemera in a second. But as you can see, there's plenty of pages to use. And what I like about these pages as well is that you can do a lot of writing, because for a travel journal, you want to be able to record where you're going. You want to be able to stick things down, and so you don't want to be covering up all the pictures. And here's some of the ephemera. I've probably got a couple of copies of these because I know I need a lot of them in the project. And we've got some lovely envelopes there. Perfect tags, which are just perfect as the way they are. But I may do a little bit of embellishing on them. Some lovely postcards to cut out. Again, some lovely pockets, mini tags. Tuck spots for corner pockets. And that's probably a duplicate there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start making this, and I'll come back in a second and show you how I'm going to make the journal cover. Okay, so we're back at my messy desk, and what I've been doing is, from the scraps that I've created as part of the project, I've cut out some of the images from the lovely kit, and roughly used my ruler, and I've distressed the edges. I've gone for pictures that, or images I should say, that are fairly neutral, because that's how I want to start the cover. And what I'm hoping to make is a patchwork cover of everything to do with travelling. So what I need to do is also have some backing images. I don't really care what the exact shape, but I want them to be straight because I'm going to sew around all of them, just like a patchwork quilt. And this is quite nice. It's got some writing on the back, but I can use that as well because it's scraps. And I'm also going to use these scraps of map paper as well to get a bit of interest. And I got some Welsh roads there, and I've also got these dictionary pages that have got various definitions to do with travel, mainly by ship I think on these ones, so I'll just cut some of them. See if I can tidy that up a bit. A metal ruler is best for this job. It's all pretty sharp. I love metal rulers. It's so handy to have. So I think I've got enough there, and I got a couple of these pages from a wine book. I'll show you the wine book. It's called A World Atlas of Wine. I picked it up in a charity shop. It probably cost me about £1 or something like that, and it's just all about different wine all over the world, and it's really handy. There's loads of lovely pictures in there, so I'm going to be using that just for the maps. So I'm going to just so be nice little rides together. Okay, so what I need to do is distress all the sides, and I'll probably speed this up Okay, that's enough. I was using, you can't see this because, well, it's just disappeared, but it's walnut stain distress ink. And I'm going to set up an Amazon wish list, which will give you a list of everything that I use in either previously or what I always use or what I use in these videos. You can just see the types of stash I order from Amazon daily. Excuse my fingers, but they're quite dirty. Okay, so how are we going to make this cover? So what I'm going to use, and what I've got from work, they kindly donated these suspension folders. So they're not using them anymore. Most of us are still part-time working from home, so they don't need so much storage. So I cut it down, and I'm going to use this as my base. So I've used various things as bases in the past for this type of project. I've used plain paper, I've used material, and I've used normal cardstock. But I want to use this because it's free and it's good to use up scraps. And what I'm looking for is my signature. So my signature at the moment is very plain. I haven't done anything to it. I've just cut it out. But it's a one signature journal using RachelandBellaCraft's kit. So what I got to make sure is that my cover is going to be big enough. Now what I've learnt from doing this in the past is, although it's really nice to have it too big so that you can make tags out of the remainder, it's a right pain on the sewing machine, and I am going to be sewing this cover. Oh, I just need to pull this off here. I'm just going to add a bit of bulk. So I can't really make it too big. So I might as well make it to the size that I need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crease where the edges are of my signature, and that's why I've done the signature ahead of time. And what I will do is probably just go a little bit over those lines to accommodate some ephemera and bits and bobs sticking out. So what I'm planning on doing is pretty much putting these pieces down like so, and making a base, sewing around each one. Does take time, but it's worth the effort. And then once I've done my first base, I'm going to come back and then put some of the ephemera pieces from the kit on top to just emphasize excuse me, the travel theme. Excuse me. But before I do that and stick the pieces down, I need to strengthen the spine, especially because I'm literally going to do the same thing on the other side. So there's not going to be anything in between, and then I'm just going to sew the signature straight in. So what I've got here, I hope, I've got this tape. I think it's called craft tape. It could be called something else. I will put links down below. Oh, they are cloth tape. Sorry guys, it's cloth tape. And I bought this version and I thought, oh, this is great. It's not quite wide enough. But this is a mama size. So this is what I'm going to use. And what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to use this inside on both sides before I stick my patches down, and then I may use this for the outside to give it further strength, and I'll see if I can decorate it in some way, or you could use washi. Okay, so let's slap this on. That's what I love about making junk journals. So many options. Okay, so that just gives it a little bit of, because I want it to feel like it's wrapping. Now the other thing to consider at this stage is how you're going to close your cover. And if you wanted the closure to be hidden, now would be a good time to put some ribbon or something in there. So what have I got? It's not what I'm going to do, but it is something you can consider. So for instance, if I was going to use this as my closure, I could stick this in now and then have this and tie it. So you would have the pieces. Let me just cut this so it just makes look sense. That makes sense. I'll probably use something like this anyway. So as I'm sewing my patches, this would be lovely and secure, and you do a double sew there, and then you'd have that nice and secure there. But I'm probably, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm probably going to put some eyelets in there and some string. I don't want to add too much bulk to the page, to the cover I mean. Okay, here we go. So what I'm planning is on the front cover, I am going to put my patches on, sew around each one, and build up the layers, and sew around the layers. And then on the inside, I am considering doing the same kind of patches, but more neutral and not sewn. I did want to use this inside, but you can see that it's not big enough. I could, and I have done in the past, and it does work really effectively, is cut this so there's like a frame around the page, and you can sew around that, and it does look really nice. But for this one, I think it'd just be nice to do the inside the same as the outside and just use different images. So that's what I'm going to do. I will use this one because obviously it's a lovely page. So I'll incorporate that into the signature somehow. Okay, so I need to do the front because that's the bit that's going to be sewn, and all the sewing will be shown on the inside, and then I'll do the inside, no sewing, and then I'm going to sew around the edges. I hope that makes sense. What I learnt from the previous project that I made, and I don't think I've got the journal to hand now. No, I don't think I got the journal to hand, but I didn't stick the patches down. I sewed around the patches as I was going, and because I didn't want to get my machine all glued up, it caused horrendous problems. So I am going to do a little bit of gluing and then leave it dry, be patient, and then do some sewing. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Literally just going to put a bit of glue there to stick it down, and I'm going to go round and this is the base layer, and one of the things you can decide is, do you want to sew around every piece individually, or do you just want to go sort of scattergun and not sew around everything? I want to sew around everything because I think it looks really nice, and hopefully I'll be able to illustrate that. But it does take longer. And you do have to be patient. Of course, you can always change your mind like I am. That's the beauty of glue stick. I'm using Yoo-hoo. Ooh-hoo. I think that's how you say it. Ooh-hoo. So I'm just going to go over this and start sticking it down. I'm putting large pieces over the spine to make it easier to cover the spine. I'm using different paper, not too many dark bits, because I will want to go over some of this and do some stamping at some point when I find my stamps in the bedroom. I want to cover those edges there. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, sew around this, and be back and do the next layer. I've got my first layer done. Now you can see my sewing skills are a lot to be desired, and I've had a few bunching up here and there. My sewing machine doesn't like going backwards. I just need to say that you totally can do this without a sewing machine. You would just glue these down really carefully, and when I come to do this, cover this side, you'll see that, and it does look really nice without the sewing, but I like to use the sewing because it gives it that patchwork type style. You can also see I haven't gone round the edges because I'll do a final run through the edges when I've done the inside cover as well. So what I'm going to do now is just carry on sticking down pages on the next layer, and again it's going to be totally random, no planning, just stick it down and hope it looks okay. Okay, back to the sewing machine. I'm ready for the third layer, and for this layer I'm going to use rather neutral pages, because what I want to do is a bit of stamping, as I said earlier, and also emphasize the main ephemera that I want to use. I'm also trying to cover up my abysmal sewing. So this just goes to show you really don't need good sewing skills. Well, I hope to demonstrate that anyway, because I really don't know how to sew. Now, you don't have to cover up every single patch, but I quite like to make sure it's all covered, because there's nothing worse than not noticing that there's a patch there and then it becomes too late to do it right at the end. So I'm just going to put that there. So there's a few phases to this little project, and you may feel it's a bit too much, but honestly I really do think it's worth it for the effect you get at the end. And yes, you do go over your sewing a little bit, but in terms of my sewing skills, it really does help a great deal. I'm just looking for some blank pages. And the other thing to note is the hassle you get if your glue is not dry, because what happens to your needle is it gets a tiny bit of glue on it and you can't thread it. So literally within 20 minutes I have ruined 2 needles because I haven't left the glue dry. So once I've done this bit, I really am going to let the glue go. Completely dry before I carry on. Right, I need to cut some more pieces from my scraps. I think I'll I find this quite relaxing, so I like doing projects like this. You don't have to think too much. Gives you a nice sense of accomplishment at the end. And it's using simple techniques. Right, I'm going to do a bit more sewing on this and come back and do the final stages. So I'm down to my last layer, and I'm just going to choose 1 or 2 small little pieces of the ephemera in the digital kit by RachelandBellaCraft. I'm just going to stick these down, and I don't want to fuss about too much, but I want to make sure that they look like they're in the right place. I think that's it. Okay, last bit of sewing needs to be done, but I definitely need to do the last bit of sewing, and then we can start on the inside, which I am definitely not going to sew because I don't think my machine will cope with it. I shall be back shortly. I finished sewing around my front cover. So the one thing I want to do before I start doing the inside is I am going to go along the edge and secure some of these patches down, because even though I do want to sew, I'm not 100% certain if my sewing machine will go through this and another layer of paper by the time I finish the inside cover. So to make certain, I'm going to glue these down. I'm going to do it in plenty of time so that I give this a chance to dry as well. Might have been easier to have done this before I started sewing, I guess, maybe. So who has hindsight when you need it? I certainly don't. I will cut that bit off at the end that's sticking down. Sticking out, I should say. Yeah, I think that's everything there. Okay, so this is the right way up. So I've just got some more scraps here and some of the ephemera left. So I'm going to go ahead and start gluing. Now the glue, now you do need more glue on this because I'm not going to sew. So I'll have to be a lot more careful. How much glue I use. Now I did think I could use some matte medium, but that does tend to react a bit with the digital prints because I'm using an inkjet printer. I want to stick some large pieces over the middle to make sure when it bends there isn't an issue. And what you can always do is leave this dry and then go over the edges again that are sticking up. Well, that one just doesn't seem to want to stick there. You will stick, my friend. You will stick. There you go. That's all finished. Just need to put tops back on the glue. And what I need to do now is let that dry fully and then come back in and fold down any bits that are sticking up. Now I did actually have to use art glitter glue in the end on the edges because they were being rather stubborn, and I'll probably have to come back in and maybe touch them up a little bit. But once I've done that, we can then move on to the next stage. What I'd like to do now is buff up the edges a little bit on either side so that it doesn't look like there's such a separation between everything. And I may have to go back in and glue, but I'd rather do that so that it doesn't look like there's three separate pieces of paper stuck down. And it gives it a little bit of a distressed look. You could use sandpaper for this as well. Does make a bit of a mess, but then what part of crafting doesn't make a mess? Okay, so you can see now I've got some areas where I need glue. I'm going to do that should the sewing machine fail. And I'm hoping it will go through my corner punch. Just about. It's a good little corner punch, this one is. I've also got this one. Not so good. It's alright for a sheet of paper or two. That's about it. Okay, I think we're alright there. So that's what the inside cover is looking like. And this is the outside cover. Okay, next stage. I want to use some of this zinc white acrylic paint. It's made by Amsterdam. I'll make sure a link is available for it. And I think this is a little bit too bold and dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tone it down a little bit so that I can do a little bit of stamping on here. I'm not too sure if it's going to work. This could be a disaster. But here we go. This paint actually, it sort of dries quite translucent I should say. So I'm just going to pop it all over. You could, I think, maybe use watered down gesso for this as well. And maybe I shouldn't have distressed the corners or the edges of the paper. I don't know. I'm not too sure. I still quite like that distress showing through. But I'm just hoping that this layer of paint will just make it look a little bit more cohesive, I think. projects on the go while you're doing this. So you can still see the distress coming through. Now if I don't think this is light enough, I will go in with a little bit of gesso as well, but I don't really want to do too much gesso because I think it'll just be too much of a contrast. Whereas this paint just gives it just a little bit of a highlight. Okay, so you can see the difference there between that and that. I'm going to have to let this dry fully, and then I need to distress the edges and attempt to go through the sewing machine. Oh no, I think it's not going to like it, but I will attempt it. There are two things concerning me about this journal. I've put the white zinc paint on there, and I like it. It's nice and muted, but I'm really worried about the spine there. And also it's looking a bit manly. I don't know what you think, but for me, I need to put a bit of prettiness in it. So what I'm planning on doing to strengthen the spine is I'm going to put this plain piece of material there with a trim on either side like that, and I'm going to sew that trim on. And then I've got some of this sort of tie-dye kind of stuff, material. And what I'm going to do there also is use the same trim so that it frames that like that. So whilst I was off camera, I was brave and I went round and sewed the cover. Did lots of distressing, and I think this is muted enough. I did wonder whether I should go and mute this, but I quite like it bold on the front of the cover, but on the inside I really did want it more muted. If I just get my signature here, I just think it looks nice. I really do think I need to strengthen this a bit more. Now the decision I've got to make is whether I put this on after I sew the signature in or before, and I think I'll put it on after. But the first thing I need to do is sort this out. So I'm going to sew the trim on either side and glue it on, and then we'll go from there. So I've sewn the trim onto the material. As you can see, my sewing's not that great, but anyway, that's the back, so it doesn't matter. And I've done the same there as well, so that's just covers that frayed. I do like frayed edges, but on this it just needed a little bit of frill to make it look a little bit more feminine. And I have decided to put this on before I sew in the signatures, because I want to be able to sew it on either side to secure it and sew it across to make sure it's really stuck in place rather than just relying on the glue. And then what I'll do is I'll then stick this piece in, which will cover the sewing from the front. Hope that makes sense. And I hope the sewing machine doesn't give up on me now. Wish me luck. Okay, the machine did not give up on me. And this is what it looks like. So I basically just done a straight stitch down either side, and I've gone across with a zigzag stitch there. You can see it is looking a bit messy, but you can hardly see the sewing there, and I could leave it like that, but I'm not, because I really think that I need that additional support. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my glue stick first. And try and get it so it's fairly central. Looks about right, she says. Spread it across to try and get rid of that crease that I should have ironed, but hey, I'm not going to pull the ironing out just for that. Weddings and funerals, the only time I do iron. There we go. Then I'm going to use Fabri-Tac. I want to be really careful with the Fabri-Tac because I know it's going to seep through if I use it on the material. So I'll just glue that like that. Excuse me. Glue it across here, and I really want to sew across there, but I don't know if I'm brave enough. So I'm going to have a think about it while the glue dries, and you can see there's already seeping through, which is so irritating. That's my own fault. And the other thing is it doesn't dry clear, does it? It leaves a globule of mess. Oh, that's pretty stuck up there, I think. Is it? I don't know. Let's put some on there. And rub it in. Still probably going to show through. Make it look straight-ish. I'm going to leave that fully dry. I do not want to put it through the sewing machine wet. And I got to think about whether I want to go across there. I really want to go across there just to secure it in place, but it may be just a step too far for the machine. I'm just going to clear the nib of that. So this is what it's looking like so far. And what I'll do is I've got plenty of this material, so I will use that in some of the signature just to pull it through. I mean, it'd be quite nice if it was as a trim on there, I think. So I will incorporate that, and also with this cover, it matches pretty well there as well. So I'm quite pleased with that. I know it's not travel themed, but it goes with the colour theme. And the other thing I really need to do is a little bit of stamping. But I'm so worried about this for now. I'm just going to go ahead and let it dry and see where I'm at then. I braved the machine, and the machine did me proud. It's actually gone through on both sides. So I haven't sewn there, but I have sewn across there and there. So this is what the cover is looking like so far. And I haven't put any stamps on it yet. I don't know whether to or not, to be honest. This is the front. What shall I do? The stamps I've got this stamp set here, which is quite tickety. Stampers Anonymous. I'll put the link to the Amazon product. There's the code there, CMS337 ticket booth. And I think it would be nice just to put some stamps, but I don't want to just randomly put stamps down and then it not look cohesive, whereas at the moment it's not looking too bad. So I think I'm going to leave it for now, and I'll create a second part where I do some work to the signature and tie it into the actual cover, sew the signature in, and then what I might do is do a little bit of decorating then, but I think I'm just going to have a little bit of time to think about what I want to do and how I want this to look. That's it for now, and I will see you in part 2.